Chapter 131. Hearing Genshin's arrogant words, the young master of the Xianxia clan couldn't help but laugh out loud. He looked at Genshin as if he was looking at an idiot and sneered, "Just you? Fine then. I want to see just how you'll escape from our encirclement. Let's see if you have the ability to make our Xianxia clan suffer heavy losses." Among the 100 people that the young master of the Xianxia clan had brought, half of them were great saints. As for saint masters, there were more than 10 of them. He didn't believe that Genshin alone could escape from their encirclement. After he finished speaking, the young master of the Xianxia clan didn't want to waste any more words with Genshin. He waved his hand and said, "Go, capture him for me. This young master will definitely teach this arrogant brat a lesson." The middle-aged men standing beside the young master of the Xianxia clan looked at each other. One of them coldly smiled and said, "Just a brat, why do we need to take action?" After he finished speaking, he turned around and pointed at the Xianxia clan's people. He used a commanding tone and said, "You guys, go and capture that brat for me." The group of people named by the middle-aged man didn't hesitate at all. They immediately walked out of the crowd and stopped 10 meters away from Genshin. The person in front coldly stared at Genshin and coldly said, "Brat, you should obediently surrender and follow us back to the Xianxia clan. That way, you can avoid the pain of having your flesh torn apart. Otherwise, I can guarantee that you will suffer a lot." Genshin stood there with his head held high. At this time, he looked like a sharp sword. The silver light wind sword gradually appeared in his right hand. Holding the divine sword, Genshin's entire aura suddenly changed. Seeing Genshin's actions, the people from the Xianxia clan understood his intentions. The person who spoke before coldly shouted. Following his voice, the people who came to capture Genshin all took out their saint weapons and rushed towards Genshin. Genshin's eyes revealed a trace of disdain. These people were only at the saint realm. In front of Genshin, who could even kill a saint master, this kind of strength was nothing. Just as these people were about to approach Genshin, the light wind sword in Genshin's hand suddenly turned into a blur as it stabbed out several times at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, the people who were rushing towards Genshin came to an abrupt stop. In front of their throats, a faint trace of blood gradually appeared. Finally, bright red blood spurted out from their throats like a fountain, dyeing their clothes red. Finally, all of them fell to the ground at the same time. The faces of the middle-aged men standing next to the young master of the Xianxia clan all changed. They looked at each other and saw a trace of seriousness in each other's eyes. These people who were only at the Saint Realm were sent to investigate Genshin. They were completely used as cannon fodder, so their deaths weren't anything to be regretted. However, when they saw the method Genshin used to kill these people, their hearts sank. In that instant, even they could only see a blur of a sword. Genshin's sword was so fast that even with their eyesight, they could only barely see it clearly. Genshin's lightning-fast killing of the people from the Xianxia clan immediately stunned everyone present. Although the restaurant was filled with people from the Xianxia clan, it was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. The people from the Xianxia clan all stared blankly at Genshin. They didn't think that at such a young age, Genshin would be able to face so many people from the Xianxia clan. Not only was he incomparably calm, but he even dared to kill their people in front of so many people. This was truly shocking and unexpected. In the 10 years that the Xianxia clan had ruled Wake City, they had clashed with many foreign mercenaries. However, this was the first time that someone as young as Genshin dared to fight with the Xianxia clan alone. After hesitating for a moment, a middle-aged man wearing a white robe standing next to the young master of the Xianxia clan said, "Sir, where do you come from? Who is your master? Why do you want to go against our Xianxia clan?" Genshin was so young and already so strong. This caused many of the experts from the Xianxia clan to guess who was behind Genshin. They were all worried that Genshin had some kind of power behind him that they couldn't afford to provoke. Otherwise, if they made a move against Genshin today, it would bring a lot of trouble to the Xianxia clan. This was because the Xianxia clan that had ruled Wake City for more than 10 years might even be destroyed because of this. This wasn't an outcome that they wanted to see. Although many of them were hired guards at a high price by the Xianxia clan and weren't members of the Xianxia clan, The Tianxiong clan had treated them well. Moreover, they had been with the Tianxiong clan for a long time and had developed feelings for the clan. Therefore, they didn't want to bring the Tianxiong clan to eternal damnation over such a small matter. Jianchen coldly laughed. With the memories of his previous life, his experience wasn't any worse than those of the older generation. From the middle-aged man's words, he could already guess what the Tianxiong clan's people were afraid of. I come and go alone. You don't need to care where I come from. As for who my master is, I'm sorry, but I still haven't had a master yet. Finally, it seems that your Tianxiong clan took the initiative to provoke me. When did it become me going against the Tianxiong clan? Jianchen coldly laughed. Hearing Jianchen's words, the middle-aged men let out a sigh of relief. The one who had spoken before continued, You should come back with us to the Tianxiong clan. Otherwise, when we start fighting, we won't hold back. If you lose an arm or a leg, that wouldn't be good. After seeing Jianchen effortlessly kill several people, the middle-aged men didn't want to fight with Jianchen. Although they were confident that they could take down Jianchen's lightning-fast sword made them feel quite afraid. If they were injured, then the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Therefore, if they could bring Jianchen back without expending any effort, they would be more than happy to do so. In your dreams? Jianchen coldly laughed. With a wave of his right hand, the light wind sword quickly danced in front of him. The tip of the sword was pointed at the group of people in front of him. The sharp sword chi pulsed from the tip of the sword as he shouted, Less nonsense. If you want to fight, then hurry up. Jianchen's provocation caused many of the Tianxiong clan's people to become angry. The young master of the Tianxiong clan was already impatient. He immediately waved his hand and shouted, What are you all standing around for? Hurry up and capture him. Chapter 132. A strong killing intent flashed through Jianchen's eyes. Without waiting for the Tianxiong clan members to charge forward, Jianchen took the initiative to meet them head-on. With a flash of his sword, the light wind sword pierced out in all directions at a speed that was hard to follow with the naked eye. Facing Jianchen's lightning-fast sword, the group of people who were clearly too weak had no way of resisting. When the sword light fell, the people at the front of the group immediately fell to the ground. In their throats and hearts, there were many small wounds, from which fresh red blood continuously flowed out. There were close to 100 people from the Tianxiong clan who had come this time. The deaths of these people didn't cause any fear in the hearts of the people behind them. The people behind them were still madly charging towards Jianchen. Their dense and heavy footsteps made a heavy purring. As they stepped on the wooden floor of the restaurant, a heavy ping sound. Seeing that the people behind him were still recklessly charging at him, Jianchen's eyes flashed with a cold light. He lightly snorted and the light wind sword in his hand became even faster. Every strike was aimed at either the throat or the heart. It could be said that each strike was fatal, without the slightest hint of mercy. Although Jianchen already knew that the Tianxiong clan was a large clan in Wake City, he was not afraid of them. Moreover, he was currently single and had no one to worry about, so what was there to worry about? Jianchen's somewhat thin and small figure nimbly shuttled through the crowd. Every time the light wind sword flashed, a person would fall to the ground. Because of their fierce battle, the entire restaurant had become a mess. The originally neatly arranged tables and chairs had been broken into pieces. Pieces of bowls, chopsticks, and dishes littered the floor. As Jianchen's ghostly figure flashed through the crowd, the people of the Tianxiong clan fell one by one. In just a few breaths of time, another 10 people had fallen to the ground, never to get up again. It was as if Jianchen had a pair of eyes on his back. He was able to observe the situation in all directions. The weapons that were slashing at him were often narrowly dodged by Jianchen. Although Jianchen was facing dozens of people by himself, he had not received a single injury. Even the saint weapons that were slashing at Jianchen didn't even touch his clothes. Seeing his own clan members fall one by one while Jianchen remained unscathed, the young master of the Tianxiong clan couldn't help but frown. His expression was filled with dissatisfaction as he cursed, "A bunch of trash, all of you are rice buckets. I never thought that my father would raise such a bunch of trash." Dozens of people can't even catch a single person. As he spoke, the young master of the Xianxia clan turned his head slightly and looked at the middle-aged men standing beside him. He used a commanding tone to shout, "What are you guys still standing there for? Hurry up and catch that brat for me. Once we bring him back, I'll definitely let him have a taste of this young master's power. Those who offend me never have a good ending. You're no exception." A cold glint flashed through the young master's eyes. The middle-aged men who were shouted at by the young master of the Xianxia clan were the strongest in the group. With their status, even if they were placed in the Xianxia clan, they would still receive a certain amount of respect. However, the young master of the Xianxia clan didn't give them any face at all, causing them to frown. Their eyes revealed a trace of displeasure. The middle-aged men looked at each other and one of them said, "Although this person doesn't look very old, he's extremely strong. With the movement technique he's using and that extremely fast sword, I'm afraid that even if we were to face him, it would be a little troublesome. Not only is his sword unbelievably fast, every single one of his attacks is fatal. Those who died at his hands either had their throats pierced through or their chests pierced through their hearts. From this, it can be seen that this person isn't that simple. If we were to face him directly now, it would be a very unwise choice. We might even be injured because of this, so I think we should get some people to exhaust his saint force first. Once he's exhausted too much of his saint force, we'll make a move and capture him." "That's right, I agree with this proposal." The middle-aged man's words quickly gained the approval of the others. Although this would increase the casualties of the Xianxia clan, this responsibility was all on the young master of the Xianxia clan. It had nothing to do with the guards. Moreover, they weren't willing to risk their lives for a spoiled young master who had never put them in his eyes. As long as they could protect themselves, it didn't matter even if all the people they brought today died. Next, another group of people entered the restaurant and charged towards Genshin. These people who came this time were all great saints. Naturally, they were much stronger than the previous group of people who were only saints. Genshin soon engaged in a fierce battle with this group of people with great saint strength. Facing a group of great saints besieging him from all directions, the pressure on Genshin suddenly increased a lot. He was no longer as calm as before. As the battle became more and more intense, the entire restaurant had already become unrecognizable. The surrounding walls were already filled with holes, and the entire restaurant was on the verge of collapse. Outside the restaurant, there was already a large crowd of people who were watching the show. They were all discussing the battle that was taking place inside the restaurant. Inside the restaurant, the light wind sword turned into a streak of white light and pierced through the chest of a great saint, piercing through his heart. Then, Genshin ruthlessly kicked the great saint in the chest, sending him flying. The great saint crashed into the already tattered walls of the restaurant, creating another large hole. The entire restaurant violently shook as it swayed more and more fiercely. In the end, it even let out a slight creaking sound. Genshin's body slightly swayed as he dodged 3 saint weapons. His eyes quickly swept over the swaying restaurant, and without any hesitation, he jumped out of the hole created by the great saint and landed on the main street. "Chase him, don't let him escape." Seeing Genshin leave the restaurant, the young master of the Xianxia clan immediately shouted. Just as the young master of the Xianxia clan finished speaking, the faces of the middle-aged men beside him changed. One of them immediately said, "Not good, the restaurant is about to collapse. Quickly escort the young master away." Immediately, one of the middle-aged men grabbed the young master of the Xianxia clan by the shoulder and quickly flew out of the restaurant. The other middle-aged men didn't slow down and quickly followed behind. Just as they left the restaurant, the entire restaurant suddenly collapsed. Immediately, some of the Xianxia clan members who hadn't managed to escape in time were buried under the rubble. Chapter 133. Young Master, Be Careful. When the middle-aged men standing next to the young master of the Xianxia clan sensed the silver light, their expressions changed drastically. However, the silver light was too fast, and it was only a meter away from the young master's throat. At such a close distance, it was already too late for them to save him. Pooh! Facing the silver light that was as fast as lightning, The young master of the Xianxia clan didn't even have time to react before his throat was pierced by the light wind sword. The young master's eyes were wide open as he stared at the light wind sword that had pierced his throat. His eyes were filled with disbelief and unwillingness. He never would have thought that provoking a small mercenary on his way to the magical Beast Mountain range would actually cost him his life. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have dared to provoke Xianxia. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Right now, his fate was sealed and he would never be able to change the magical Beast Mountain range. Looking at the light wind sword that had pierced the young master's throat, the middle-aged men beside him paled. They knew that this young master was the only son of the Xianxia clan's current patriarch. He was the most favored son of the Xianxia clan and was also the future successor of the Xianxia clan. Now that the young master of the Xianxia clan had been killed in front of them, they couldn't imagine how crazy the patriarch of the Xianxia clan would become after hearing this news. They also couldn't imagine what kind of punishment the patriarch of the Xianxia clan would receive. Thinking about the severity of the patriarch of the Xianxia clan, the middle-aged men couldn't help but shiver. They all looked at Xianxia with eyes full of anger. If they couldn't bring Xianxia back today, they wouldn't be able to answer to their superiors. Little brat, you actually killed the young master. Prepare to die. The middle-aged men didn't hesitate and immediately took out their saint weapons to attack Xianxia. At the same time, one of them shouted, "Men of the Xianxia clan, immediately surround the area. Don't let him escape." The middle-aged men's status in the Xianxia clan wasn't low. Hearing their orders, the other members of the Xianxia clan didn't hesitate and immediately spread out to surround the battlefield. At the same time, some of the people who had come to watch the show were pushed far away. In the ruins of the collapsed restaurant, there were people who were crawling out in a sorry state and immediately joined the crowd surrounding the site. The surrounding crowd had also witnessed the scene of the young master of the Xianxia clan being killed. Everyone was clear on the severity of this matter. In order to avoid drawing fire to themselves, each and every one of them tactfully retreated a certain distance. At such a sensitive time, no one was willing to take the initiative to start a conflict with the Xianxia clan. Otherwise, the death of the young master of the Xianxia clan would have something to do with them. After killing the young master of the Xianxia clan, Xianxia immediately began to fight with the other middle-aged men. These middle-aged men all had the strength of a saint master, and 3 of them had already reached the high level of a saint master. Facing several saint masters, Xianxia felt the pressure increase by a lot, forcing him to use his full strength. Xianxia and the middle-aged men exchanged a few blows. Finally, Xianxia's endless barrage of attacks had forced one of his opponents to panic. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xianxia stabbed out with his light wind sword, directly piercing through his opponent's heart. The sharp tip of the sword pierced right through the middle-aged man's heart. Just as Xianxia's light wind sword pierced through the middle-aged man's heart, a machete fiercely chopped at his left shoulder, leaving a deep wound that revealed bone. Fresh blood quickly dyed the clothes on his shoulder red. The pain from his shoulder caused Xianxia's face to pale. He immediately pulled out his light wind sword and stabbed towards the middle-aged man holding the machete. Seeing the light wind sword flying towards him, the middle-aged man with the machete had a very serious expression on his face. He immediately moved his machete in front of him to block the light wind sword as he quickly retreated. Ding! The light wind sword's sharp tip pierced the middle-aged man's machete, and the sword chi from the tip of the light wind sword left a clear mark on the smooth surface of the machete. The sharp sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out, and 5 different weapons simultaneously slashed towards Xianxia's vitals from different directions, sealing off all of Xianxia's escape routes. The powerful saint force from the weapons actually caused the surrounding air to slightly fluctuate. Xianxia's eyes flashed with a cold light, and the light wind sword surface became even more hazy. In an instant, it turned into a blur and stabbed out 5 times. Ding, ding, ding. Sounds rang out as the light wind sword collided with the 5 saint weapons. Although the light wind sword blocked the 5 saint weapons, Xianxia's face also became pale. His right hand that was holding the sword was also slightly trembling. This attack could be said to be the full power of the 5 saint weapons, so it wasn't easy to block. The saint force from the 5 saint weapons not only caused Jianxin's entire right arm to go numb, but it also caused his internal organs to be slightly shaken. Ha! Angry roars rang out once again as the saint masters didn't give Jianxin any time to breathe. They once again attacked Jianxin. The coordination between the saint masters was very ingenious. Even if there was an opening, Jianxin wouldn't be able to kill any of them without injuring himself. Jianxin's eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. This time, facing the 5 saint weapons, he didn't try to dodge. Instead, the light wind sword in his hand suddenly turned into a silver bolt of lightning as it pierced towards the nearest saint weapon. Pooh! The light wind sword didn't meet any resistance as it pierced deeply into the saint weapon's throat. At the same time, the 5 saint weapons were about to land on Jianxin's body. The powerful saint force from the saint weapons caused Jianxin's clothes to stick tightly to his body. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, Jianxin slightly twisted his body and narrowly dodged 3 of the saint weapons. However, the other 2 saint weapons landed solidly on Jianxin's back and waist. Jianxin groaned as his originally pale face became even paler. He immediately pulled out the light wind sword from the Saint Master's throat and quickly glanced at the Saint Masters around him. He didn't want to continue fighting and quickly ran away. The Xianxia clan's influence in Wake City wasn't weak. Jianxin knew that the longer he stayed here, the worse his situation would become. With his current strength, he could only fight against Saint Masters. If the Xianxia clan sent out a great Saint Master, then he would be in trouble. With his current strength, he couldn't fight against a great Saint Master. Chapter 134. Seeing that Jianxin was trying to escape, one of the remaining Saint Masters immediately shouted, "Quickly stop him! Don't let him get away!" The Xianxia clan's guards immediately rushed forward, each one of them fearlessly blocking Jianxin's path. They brandished their saint weapons and slashed towards Jianxin. Even though they knew that Jianxin was very strong, these guards were still fearless. Jianxin's eyes flashed with a cold light. His footsteps changed, and his body suddenly moved to the side, dodging the saint weapons in front of him. His right arm trembled as he attacked with all his strength. The light wind sword in his hand danced in all directions, causing the guards in front of him to fall to the ground one by one. How could these saint and great saint-level guards stop Jianxin's footsteps? Even though Jianxin was injured and his battle strength had decreased, if he went all out, these guards wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. After killing the 10 or so guards in front of him, Jianxin didn't hesitate at all and used his movement skill. His body was like a ghost as he quickly escaped. When the mercenaries who were watching the show saw Jianxin rush out, they all tactfully made way for him. It was as if they were afraid that if they blocked Jianxin's path, they would face the same fate as the guards of the Xianxia clan. Facing someone who was strong enough to kill 2 high-level Saint Masters while being surrounded by several Saint Masters, and who didn't fear the Xianxia clan and openly killed the young master of the Xianxia clan, this group of mercenaries didn't dare to casually provoke someone who was strong enough to kill 2 high-level Saint Masters while being surrounded by several Saint Masters. It was to the extent that many of the spectators had already begun to view Jianxin as a great Saint Master. This kind of person could only be found in a few large mercenary groups of a certain size. Jianxin's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed over 30 meters and arrived in front of the surrounding mercenaries. At this time, because there wasn't enough time, the spectators didn't have enough time to open up a path to the outside. Just as Jianxin was about to close in on the crowd, he suddenly stomped his feet on the ground and flew into the air. His legs were in a running position as he quickly flew over 10 meters before landing on the ground as light as a feather. Without slowing down, he continued to run forward. Chase! Quickly chase! We can't let him escape. Quickly chase after him. He wants to escape the city. Immediately send people to guard the city and close the city gates. A few middle-aged men cried out anxiously from behind. Following that, the sound of something tearing through the air could be heard. A few middle-aged men who had reached the Saint Master level leapt out of the crowd and chased after Jianxin. Their speed was extremely fast, disappearing from the street in the blink of an eye. Behind them, a group of Tianxiong clan guards with the strength of a great saint and a saint quickly chased after the middle-aged men who had already disappeared from the street. Roar! Not long after they left, the angry roar of a magical beast suddenly came from behind them. As soon as the roar fell, the entire street began to tremble slightly as if there was a slight earthquake. The mercenaries who were still watching the show quickly opened up a path for a magical beast the size of a cow to run in from behind. On the back of the magical beast was a tall and sturdy middle-aged man. The middle-aged man wore a white brocade robe with golden embroidery. From his appearance, he was close to 50 years old. His serious expression added a bit of dignity to his appearance. His pair of deep black eyes occasionally flashed with a cold light, causing some of the weaker mercenaries to not dare to look him in the eye. In a place as remote as Wake City, there were not many people who had the ability to ride magical beasts. However, one thing was certain, and that was that those who could ride magical beasts were either powerful experts or people from rich families. In the Tianyuan continent, only these two kinds of people had the ability to ride magical beasts as mounts. Behind the middle-aged man on the magical beast, there was a small group of about 50 people. They were standing in an orderly manner, and all of them had serious expressions on their faces. They looked like a well-trained army. Ever since the appearance of this middle-aged man riding on a magical beast, everyone's eyes were focused on him. The entire place fell into a strange silence, but soon after, a buzzing sound came from the mouths of the surrounding mercenaries. Isn't that the current head of the Tianxiong clan, Tianxiong Lai? I didn't think that he would come so quickly. It's said that the Tianxiong clan is not only the #1 clan in Wake City, but the current head of the clan is also an extremely powerful expert. His strength has already reached the intermediate Great Saint Master realm, and he also has the Earth Attribute Saint Force that specializes in defense. In the entire Wake City, there are very few people who can match the current head of the Tianxiong clan, Tianxiong Lai. The young master of the Tianxiong clan is the son of Tianxiong Lai. After decades of hard work, Tianxiong Lai finally managed to give birth to him. From a young age, Tianxiong Lai treated him like a treasure. I wonder how crazy Tianxiong Lai will become when he finds out that his son has been killed. After all, he was the only heir of the Tianxiong clan. Tianxiong Lai, who was riding on the back of the magic beast, swept his sharp gaze over the bodies of the Tianxiong clan's guards one by one, and his eyes gradually filled with killing intent. However, when his eyes fell on a young man in a white robe lying on the ground, his face suddenly changed. Even his breathing stopped for a moment, and his face was filled with disbelief. "Kongta!" Tianxiong Lai cried out in a low voice. His voice was trembling as he jumped off the back of the magical beast and landed in front of the young man. His eyes were wide open as he stared at the young man's pale face. His eyes were filled with disbelief. "Kongta!" Tianxiong Lai let out a cry of agony. His hands trembled as they fell on the young man's shoulders. He could feel the cold sensation coming from his body. At that moment, Tianxiong Lai felt as if his heart had been broken. He was very experienced and could immediately tell that the young man in front of him was dead. Tianxiong Lai continued to cry out in grief. His voice sounded like he was sobbing. 2 clear lines of tears flowed from the middle-aged man's eyes. They slowly slid down his resolute face before falling to the ground and shattering into pieces. Tianxiong Kong was Tianxiong Lai's only son. Due to the fact that he had suffered from an internal injury when he was young, he had almost completely lost the ability to reproduce. This son of his was born after decades of hard work. From the moment he was born, Tianxiong Lai had treated Tianxiong Kong as the apple of his eye. Tianxiong Lai had doted on Tianxiong Kong ever since he was a child. It could be said that Tianxiong Lai cared for him a lot. But now, Tianxiong Lai's only son, Tianxiong Kong, had been killed. The impact on Tianxiong Lai's heart was indescribable. Although Tianxiong Kong looked to be in his 40s or 50s, due to the long lifespan of the people of the Tianyuan continent and the fact that he had been cultivating Saint Force since he was young, he was actually in his 70s. With his current age and the hidden injuries he had suffered, it was impossible for him to bear children. Chapter 135. Although Wake City wasn't a large third-grade city and didn't have many residents, it was still very prosperous due to its proximity to the magical Beast Mountain range. Every day, there would be a large number of people coming in and out of the city. On the main street of Wake City, there were many small vendors and stalls on both sides of the street. There were also a few small shops selling all kinds of goods. Of course, among these shops, restaurants and lodging were the most popular. In the middle of the street, there was an endless stream of mercenaries and merchants with large carts of goods. From the discussions of the pedestrians that passed by, the entire street was filled with noise, making Wake City even more bustling than before. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion in the crowd in front of the street. Then, a young man whose clothes were stained with blood ran over at an extremely fast speed. The youth's appearance immediately attracted the attention of the people around him. They all looked at the youth and pointed at him as they discussed in low voices. Whoever stops the person running in front will be heavily rewarded by the Xianxia clan. At the same time, a loud shout came from far behind. As soon as the voice fell, a few middle-aged men with slightly messy clothes rushed from behind. They chased after the young man in front of them at a speed that was not much slower than the young man in front of them. Xianxia clan, they are actually people from the Xianxia clan. The Xianxia clan is the #1 clan in Wake City. I don't want to provoke anyone who dares to offend the Xianxia clan in Wake City. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, many of the mercenaries began to discuss in low voices. However, none of them stepped forward to stop the youth who was running away. This youth was none other than Jianchen, who had just killed the young master of the Xianxia clan and his many guards and was planning to flee. Jianchen quickly ran in the direction of the city gates. Along the way, whenever he encountered any obstacles, he would immediately leap onto the roofs and vault over the walls. His speed could be said to be extremely fast. Even so, the saint experts chasing him still followed closely behind him. However, due to Jianchen's profound movement technique, he had the advantage in speed. Thus, even though the middle-aged men were much stronger than Jianchen, they were still unable to catch up to him. Unless one of them had Wind Saint Force or was an expert at the Great Saint Realm, their speed could only keep up with Jianchen's. Moreover, if they encountered any obstacles in front of them, they would not be able to move as casually as Jianchen did. Although Wake City was a small third-grade city, the area it occupied was not small. Even if Jianchen ran with all his might to the nearest city gate, it would still take him at least an incense stick's worth of time. Jianchen's breathing gradually became heavy as he ran with all his might. The previous intense battle had consumed a lot of his saint force. Furthermore, he was currently injured. Running at full speed put a huge burden on his body. Furthermore, the intense movement of his body had affected his injuries. The waves of pain that came from his injuries were a severe test for Jianchen's nerves. In front of him, the tall and majestic city walls were faintly visible. It was so beautiful that he could even vaguely make out the soldiers standing on top of them. Right now, he was less than 5 kilometers away from Wake City's walls. As for the saint experts of the Xianxia clan, they were already 50 meters away from Jianchen. Seeing the city walls in front of him becoming clearer and clearer, Jianchen couldn't help but relax a bit. However, his speed didn't decrease in the slightest. In his heart, he was clear that the Xianxia clan's influence in Wake City was enormous. With his current strength, he wasn't strong enough to face the entire Xianxia clan head-on. Right now, the only thing he could do was to escape from Wake City. Only then would he be able to minimize the danger. Roar! Right at this moment, the long roar of a magical beast came from far behind. As soon as the roar sounded, an unconcealable roar of extreme anger could be heard. Stop the person in front of me and I, Xianxia Lai, will reward you handsomely. Jianchen's face changed slightly when he heard the furious roar from behind. With his experience, he could tell just how powerful the person was from the roar. It was definitely not someone he could contend against. Xianxia Lai, he must also be a member of the Xianxia clan. Jianchen secretly thought to himself. His running speed actually increased by a bit. When the mercenaries and merchants on the streets heard Xianxia Lai's angry roar, their expressions froze. Xianxia Lai, Isn't he the current head of the Tianxiong clan in Wake City? Someone who dares to offend the Tianxiong clan in Wake City and is being personally chased by Tianxiong Lai can't be weak. Forget it, I've only just reached the Great Saint Realm, so it's best if I don't get involved. The Tianxiong clan is the #1 power in Wake City. If I can stop the person running away, I'm sure Tianxiong Lai will reward me handsomely. Who knows, he might even be able to befriend the Tianxiong clan. That would be a great fortune for me. Some of the mercenaries who were familiar with Wake City immediately recognized Tianxiong Lai's identity and began to whisper amongst themselves. Among them, there were many who were confident in their own strength and were already thinking about the benefits they could get from this battle. Tianxiong Lai's prestige and influence in Wake City wasn't low. As soon as he spoke, he immediately moved the hearts of many mercenaries. Seeing Jianchen quickly running towards them from afar, a few of them immediately took out their saint weapons and blocked Jianchen's path. With someone taking the lead, many more mercenaries also took out their saint weapons and joined the group blocking Jianchen's path. These people clearly couldn't resist the temptation of Tianxiong Lai's generous reward. After all, the Tianxiong clan was the #1 clan in Wake City. Seeing the people blocking his path, Jianchen's expression immediately became serious. However, his speed was also extremely fast. In just 2 breaths of time, he had already closed in on them. Just as Jianchen closed in, a few of the mercenaries took the initiative to charge towards Jianchen with their saint weapons. Jianchen didn't want to be entangled with them. Instead, he fiercely stomped on the ground and leapt into the air, avoiding the people who were charging towards him. Then he used the tips of his feet to tap on the buildings on both sides of the street and fly over the heads of the people who were charging towards him. Where do you think you're going? Immediately, a few of the people who reacted quickly leapt high into the air. Their saint weapons were infused with saint force as they mercilessly slashed towards Jianchen. A dense killing intent flashed through Jianchen's eyes as he suddenly turned around. The silver-white light wind sword appeared in his right hand and transformed into a blur as it shot out like lightning. Ding 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 ding. Chapter 136. Jianchen's body was still in midair as he killed several of the mercenaries with lightning speed. This scene shocked many of the surrounding people. Some of the mercenaries who had originally planned to stop Jianchen gave up after seeing how strong Jianchen was despite being injured. Although the Tianxiong clan's current head, Tianxiong Lai, had said that the reward was tempting, but that reward required one to be alive to enjoy it. If one were to lose one's life, then no matter how great the reward was, they wouldn't be able to enjoy it. After dealing with the mercenaries who had tried to stop him, Jianchen didn't stop for even a moment. His body was still in midair as he used the tips of his toes to push against the buildings on both sides of the street. He was getting closer and closer to the city walls. After the previous scene, none of the mercenaries dared to block Jianchen's path. Therefore, Jianchen's path was very smooth. You can't escape. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, I, Tianxiong Lai, swear that I will tear you to shreds. Tianxiong Lai's roar came from behind as the current head of the Tianxiong clan quickly chased after Jianchen on his magic beast. From his slightly hoarse voice, it wasn't hard to tell that Tianxiong Lai was determined to kill Jianchen. If Jianchen killed Tianxiong Kong, it would be the same as cutting off Tianxiong Lai's bloodline. After all, Tianxiong Lai was his only son. Once he lost this son, with Tianxiong Lai's current condition, he would no longer have the ability to reproduce. Jianchen ignored Tianxiong Lai's roar filled with killing intent. He only focused on running towards the city walls. From the sound of the footsteps behind him, Jianchen understood that Tianxiong Lai's speed was much faster than his own. 5 kilometers, 4 kilometers, 3 kilometers. Jianchen was getting closer and closer to the city walls. At this moment, he was only 2 kilometers away from the city walls. He could even see the wide open gates of Wake City. Behind him, Tianxiong Lai was only a kilometer away from him, and he was still closing the gap. Commander Ha Duo, please close the city gates and help me stop those who are running away. I, Tianxiong Lai, will be eternally grateful. Tianxiong Lai's voice, which seemed to be able to shake the heavens, rang out from behind him. Just as he finished speaking, the wide open city gates of Wake City quickly closed. Seeing the city gate close, Xianxia's face immediately sank. His eyes quickly swept across the 30 to 40 meter tall city wall in front of him. He then took a deep breath and circulated all the saint force in his body. His charging speed couldn't help but increase by 30%. At this moment, Xianxia had already used all the movement techniques he had learned in his previous life to the limit. Although his feet were in a running motion, the tips of his feet seemed to be floating on the ground. Every 10 to 20 meters, the tips of his feet would lightly touch the ground. Very quickly, Xianxia arrived in front of the city walls. Because the gates were closed, a large group of people quickly gathered in front of the city gates. Among them, there were many rude mercenaries who were cursing. Xianxia's body did not show any signs of stopping. Following which, his feet fiercely stomped on the ground and his body flew towards the 30 to 40 meter tall city walls. Using the momentum of his charge, his feet constantly tapped on the walls as he quickly climbed up. Xianxia's actions attracted the attention of many people in front of the city gates. Immediately, there was a lot of discussion. Xianxia only used 2 breaths of time to smoothly climb up the 30 to 40 meter tall city walls. His feet once again tapped on the battlements of the city walls, and he jumped over the head of a soldier on the city walls. He directly shot out of the city, and in the end, he actually jumped down from the 30 to 40 meter tall city walls. Everything went very smoothly. Xianxia didn't encounter any obstructions on his way over the city walls. Even the soldiers on the city walls watched him fly over the city walls without making a move to stop him. Just as Xianxia jumped over the city walls, Xianxia, who was chasing closely behind, also arrived at the city walls. He directly jumped off the back of his magical beast and copied Xianxia's actions. He quickly climbed up the city walls and continued to chase after Xianxia. As for the magical beast, perhaps because its body was too cumbersome and it wasn't good at jumping, when Xianxia left, it strangely stayed where it was and didn't chase after him. Behind him, another dozen or so middle-aged men rushed over from behind. They glanced at the tightly shut city gates and immediately jumped over the city walls, chasing in the direction of Xianxia's escape. These dozen or so people were all from the Xianxia clan, and all of them possessed the strength of Saint Masters. Open the city gates. Just as the few of them left the city, a deep voice came from the city walls. Following that, the tightly closed city gates slowly opened with a series of creaking sounds. On top of the city walls stood 2 middle-aged men. One of them was wearing a white robe and the other was wearing a black armor. At this moment, the 2 middle-aged men were looking at the group of people who were quickly leaving the city. When Xianxia's group disappeared from sight, the middle-aged man wearing the armor looked at the white-robed man beside him and asked, "Commander Ha Duo, why didn't you make a move to stop that person?" The white-robed middle-aged man smiled and said, "He killed Xianxia's only son, Xianxia Kong. I can't even thank him enough. Why should I stop him?" Hearing this, the middle-aged man wearing the armor was slightly stunned. Then, as if he had thought of something, a gloating smile appeared on his face. Outside the city, Xianxia, who was running at top speed, turned around to look at Xianxia. Seeing Xianxia chasing after him, Xianxia's face immediately became serious. Although he had not exchanged blows with Xianxia, Xianxia could feel that he was definitely not Xianxia's opponent. Looking at the open field around him, Xianxia thought for a while. Then he gritted his teeth and changed his direction, rushing towards the magical Beast Mountain range. In his heart, he also understood that in this open field, there was no way for him to shake off Xianxia. Now, the only way was to once again enter the magical Beast Mountain range and use the complex terrain to shake off Xianxia's pursuit. Seeing Xianxia getting closer and closer to him, Xianxia's eyes suddenly became red. He didn't bother to hide his strong killing intent as he roared, "You can't escape!" Xianxia turned around to look at Xianxia, who was less than 500 meters away from him. According to the situation, Xianxia would catch up to him before he even reached the magical Beast Mountain range. Xianxia hesitated for a moment. Then, he gritted his teeth and the light wind sword appeared in his right hand. In the next moment, Jianshan's body suddenly stopped and he took the initiative to charge towards Xianxia. Chapter 137. Seeing that Jianshan had stopped running and was actually taking the initiative to charge at him, Xianxia's face couldn't help but reveal a sinister smile as he shouted, "Come, I'll cut you into 1,000 pieces. No, dying like this is too easy for you. I'll make sure you suffer a fate worse than death." After saying that, a large axe suddenly appeared in Xianxia's hands. This axe was very large, twice the size of Xianxia's body. The entire axe was a yellowish color, and the sharp edge of the axe flashed with a threatening cold light. The light wind sword in Jianshan's hand cut through the air, creating a slight sound as it pierced towards Xianxia. "Ha!" Xianxia roared as the axe in his hands flashed with a yellowish light. Then, with a whistling sound, the axe slashed towards Jianshan. "It's actually Earth Saint Force." Seeing the yellowish light on the axe, Jianshan's expression became even more serious. Immediately, he withdrew his light wind sword and dodged Xianxia's attack. In a flash, he appeared beside Xianxia and thrust the light wind sword towards his waist. Xianxia's face revealed a cold smile as he suddenly released one of his hands from the axe. A yellowish light quickly covered his palm as he tried to grab Jianshan's light wind sword. The light wind sword was tightly gripped in Xianxia's right hand. The sharp edge of the sword was actually unable to harm him. Jianshan's eyes revealed a trace of shock. Although he had heard that people with Earth Saint Force had a very strong defense, he didn't think that it would be this strong. Immediately after, a sharp light flashed in Xianxia's eyes. In the next moment, the light wind sword in Xianxia's right hand suddenly shot out a powerful sword qi. Under the attack of this powerful sword qi, the layer of yellow light on Xianxia's right hand began to thin, as if it was about to disappear. Xianxia quickly released his right hand from the light wind sword. As soon as his hand left the light wind sword, the yellowish light on his hand also disappeared. All that could be seen on Xianxia's hand was a crisscrossing wound that covered his entire palm. The blood that flowed out quickly dyed his hand red. Looking at his hand, Xianxia coldly snorted. Like a vicious wolf, he stared fiercely at Jianshan and said in a low voice, "Speak. Why did you kill my Kong? Who ordered you to do this?" Jianshan withdrew his sword and retreated a few meters away from Xianxia. He coldly smiled and said, "No one ordered me to do this. It was your son who provoked me. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself. You raised a hedonistic disciple who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He only knows how to cause trouble everywhere he goes." Xianxia's sharp eyes stared at Jianshan for a while before he opened his mouth again and asked, "Is there really no one who ordered you to do this? At this time, there is no need for you to take the blame for someone else. If you tell me the truth, I might let you die a quick death." "I've already said it. It's up to you to believe me or not," Jianshan said. Seeing that Jianshan didn't seem to be lying, Xianxia couldn't help but believe him. He let out a long sigh and said, "It seems that everything was my fault. I was too lenient with Kong. Kong was killed because of me." Xianxia's voice was filled with regret and deep sorrow. At this time, in the distance, more than 10 people were running towards them. Seeing the 10 people behind Xianxia, Jianshan's expression changed. Just one Xianxia was already not something he could deal with. If there were more than 10 Saint Masters, then he was afraid that he would really be in trouble today. Jianshan's right foot fiercely stomped on the ground, causing a large amount of soil to fly up. Jianshan put away his light wind sword and gathered all of his Saint Qi into his palms. He then pushed forward, causing the soil in front of him to turn into powder and fly towards Xianxia, submerging him within it. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Jianshan didn't hesitate and immediately rushed towards the magical Beast Mountain range. Being covered by the yellow soil, Xianxia's vision was greatly affected and he couldn't see his surroundings clearly. In order to prevent Jianshan from suddenly attacking him from the front, Xianxia's figure immediately retreated. But when he saw Jianshan running away, he was immediately enraged and angrily shouted, "You can't escape!" Before he even finished his words, Xianxia had already chased after Jianchen. But with this delay, the distance between Jianchen and Xianxia had already increased by a few hundred meters. At this time, Jianchen didn't have time to use his Radiant Saint Force to heal his wounds. He had to use his fastest speed to reach the magical Beast Mountain range, and then use the complex terrain to escape from Xianxia's pursuit. Wake City was about 20 kilometers away from the magical Beast Mountain range, but with Jianchen's speed, he quickly covered the distance and arrived at a forest in the outskirts of the magical Beast Mountain range. In front of him, the lush greenery was clearly visible. Xianxia seemed to have guessed Jianchen's plan. He hesitated for a moment, but then his eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. The large axe once again appeared in his hand as a thick yellow light enveloped it. Xianxia raised the axe high and with a loud roar, he swung it down with all of his strength. A 2-meter-wide beam of energy formed from Earth-attributed Saint Force shot toward Jianchen at an extremely fast speed in the shape of a crescent. In front of him, Jianchen sensed the intense energy fluctuations coming from behind him. He didn't even have time to look, and his running figure immediately changed direction and shifted to the side. The crescent-shaped beam of energy brushed past Jianchen's body. This time, Jianchen narrowly avoided it. Boom! The crescent-shaped beam of energy bombarded a large boulder in front of him, causing a loud explosion. The powerful shockwave dispersed in all directions, and the boulder, which was about 2 people tall, 3 meters wide and 1 meter thick, turned into countless pieces of rubble that flew in all directions. And Jianchen just happened to be caught in the blast. Jianchen miserably dodged the flying rubble, but he was still hit by the flying rubble. Some of the sharp rubble even pierced his flesh. After this unforeseen event, Jianchen's speed was hindered to a certain extent. Chapter 138. In a flash, the light wind sword appeared in Jianchen's hand. In the next moment, an intense and sharp sword chi was emitted from the light wind sword. Immediately after, the light wind sword left Jianchen's hand and transformed into a ray of silver light. With incredible speed, it flew towards the giant axe. Ding! The light wind sword and the giant axe collided above Jianchen's head, creating a crisp sound. After the collision, both the sword chi that was emitted by the light wind sword and the yellow light surrounding the giant axe dimmed. When the two weapons collided, a powerful shockwave was produced, causing the surrounding sand and rocks to fly up into the air. Even Jianchen was pushed back by the shockwave. The light wind sword was sent flying backwards by the powerful recoil, but when it had flown less than 10 meters, it suddenly stopped in midair. Immediately after, the powerful and sharp sword chi once again surged out from the light wind sword. So, at this moment, the light wind sword seemed to have transformed into an immortal sword with a mind of its own. Without anyone controlling it, it once again shot towards Xianxia. Just as the light wind sword was about to pierce Xianxia's throat, Xianxia twisted his neck and dodged the attack by a hair's breadth. Even so, the light wind sword's sharp tip still managed to leave a shallow cut on his neck. Jianchen sighed in his heart. Such a good opportunity, but Xianxia managed to dodge it. However, he wasn't the least bit disheartened. He continued to control the light wind sword and continued to attack Xianxia. Looking at the light wind sword that was flying in the air by itself, Xianxia's eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. What's going on? How can a saint weapon fly in the air by itself when no one is controlling it? How can it fly at such an unbelievable speed? Xianxia cried out in his heart. He couldn't understand what was happening in front of him. This was beyond his understanding. At this time, under Jianchen's control, the light wind sword once again shot towards Xianxia. Xianxia gave a loud shout as a thick yellow light appeared around his body. The earth attribute Saint Qi condensed around his body and formed a layer of armor around him. Xianxia raised his axe and swung it towards the incoming light wind sword. Jianchen willed the light wind sword to dodge Xianxia's attack and circle around him. The difference in strength between Jianchen and Xianxia was just too great. Even if he used the imperial sword technique to amplify his attack by many times, he still couldn't fight Xianxia head-on. Xianxia's axe, which was infused with Saint force, smashed into the ground. Boom! With a loud boom, a 1-meter-deep crater was formed in the soft soil on the ground. The light wind sword spun around in the air and adjusted its direction before shooting towards Tianxiong again. Before Tianxiong could even turn around, the tip of the light wind sword had already pierced through his body. The light wind sword's sharp and powerful sword qi clashed with Tianxiong earth-attributed Saint qi for a while before the light wind sword was able to pierce a hole in it and pierce through Tianxiong body. Just as the light wind sword was about to pierce through Tianxiong body, it was blocked by the Saint qi within his body. Slowly, the light wind sword was forced out of Tianxiong body. Jianxin's eyebrows wrinkled. Tianxiong was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Even with such a good opportunity, he still wasn't able to kill Tianxiong. It seemed that with his current strength, even if he used the Imperial Sword technique, he would only be able to delay Tianxiong for a while. If he was lucky, he might be able to injure him when he wasn't paying attention, but to kill Tianxiong would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Furthermore, using the Imperial Sword technique was very taxing on his soul. He definitely wouldn't be able to maintain it for long. After thinking for a while, Jianxin made a decision. With a thought, the light wind sword turned into a silver light and disappeared back into his hand. Jianxin didn't hesitate and immediately rushed towards the magical Beast Mountain range. The most important thing right now was to escape to a safe place and then plan his next move. As for Tianxiong, Jianxin wouldn't even be able to protect himself, let alone kill him. He would have to wait until he was strong enough to take revenge. Tianxiong face was gloomy as he watched Jianxin run away. The Saint qi that was covering his body slowly returned to his body. On his back, there was a small wound, from which blood flowed out and dyed his clothes red. Patriarch! Patriarch! At this time, the 10 Tianxiong clan members also caught up and stood behind Tianxiong. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief as they looked at the small wound on Tianxiong's back. Chase, we can't let him escape, Tianxiong said in a deep voice as he led the 10 Saint Masters in hot pursuit. Jianxin had already entered the forest outside of the magical Beast Mountain range. He was running as fast as he could, but his current speed was much slower than before. Even his breathing had become rough and his face was pale white. The wounds on his body were still bleeding profusely, and the stones that had been shot into his flesh were constantly rubbing against his flesh. The pain was unbearable and was constantly tormenting Jianxin's nerves. Right now, he didn't have the time to treat his wounds. He was running as fast as he could, and he didn't even have the time to use his Saint qi to heal himself. Jianxin stopped in front of a large tree and took several deep breaths. He turned around to look at Tianxiong and the others who were still chasing after him. After determining his direction, he once again ran towards the magic Beast Mountain range. Along the way, Jianxin used the cover of the trees and weeds to constantly change his position, giving Tianxiong and the others a great deal of trouble. Chasing a person in the forest was not as easy as it was on the outside. In this dense forest where weeds were everywhere, the slightest carelessness could lead to the loss of a person. Unknowingly, this chase had lasted for half a day. It was already noon, and the thick clouds in the sky had covered the scorching sun completely, making the whole world appear gray and gloomy. Tianxiong and the others followed Jianxin's trail all the way to the outskirts of the magical Beast Mountain range. Finally, they lost sight of Jianxin. Tianxiong's fierce gaze swept over the surrounding lush weeds. His face was terrifyingly gloomy. Immediately, he took out a warrant and said, "Xingdao, immediately take this warrant back to the magical Beast Mountain range and organize a search party for that person." Chapter 139. After the middle-aged man with the command medallion left, Tianxiong waved his hand and said, "Carefully search the area for any signs of his escape." After losing track of Jianxin, Tianxiong's group could only rely on the traces left behind by Jianxin, increasing the difficulty of their search. In a dense forest in the outskirts of the magical Beast Mountain range, Jianxin's face was pale as he sat under a large tree. Using the tip of the light wind sword, he carefully removed the rocks that had pierced into his body. The bright red blood had already dyed his clothes red. When the tip of the light wind sword pierced into his flesh, a wave of unbearable pain surged through his body. Again and again, the pain assaulted Jianshan's nerves and brain. The pain caused Jianshan's forehead to be covered in a thin layer of sweat. When the last rock was removed from his body, Xianxia finally let out a soft groan. His entire body was powerless as he leaned against the tree trunk behind him, gasping for breath. After resting for a while, Xianxia concentrated on listening for any movement in his surroundings. After confirming that it was safe, he immediately sat down cross-legged. Immediately, a layer of faint white light appeared and wrapped around Xianxia's body. Moreover, the white light continued to grow thicker and thicker. After a few breaths, it had formed a dazzling milky white light. Xianxia's entire body was submerged in this milky white light. From the outside, one could only faintly see a blurry figure. The milky white light lasted for half an hour before gradually dissipating. When the light disappeared, Xianxia's figure could be seen again. But at this moment, the paleness on his face had disappeared and returned to normal. The wounds on his body had also completely disappeared and there wasn't even a single scar where he had been injured. Xianxia didn't wake up and continued to sit cross-legged on the ground to recover his saint force. He had been through so many battles, and then he had to flee with all his might. His saint force had been greatly depleted, and at this moment, the saint force in his body was almost completely depleted. In this magical beast mountain range, where magical beasts roamed about, and where Tianxiong Lai and the others could find him at any time, Xianxia could only maintain his peak condition in order to face the dangers that could occur at any time. Unknowingly, time quickly passed by and Xianxia had already been sitting cross-legged on the ground for 3 hours. During this time, his body didn't move at all and he didn't even open his eyes. It was as if he was an old monk who had completely lost his perception of the outside world. At this moment, behind Xianxia, a python about a foot thick slithered out of the tree and silently approached Xianxia. Its thick body slithered around the tree trunk and very quickly arrived in front of Xianxia. Its small head slowly extended towards Xianxia. When the python's head was less than 3 meters away from Xianxia, the cross-legged Xianxia suddenly opened his eyes. With a flash of cold light, the silver-white light wind sword appeared in his right hand and transformed into a blurry sword shadow that shot out with lightning speed. Pooh! The sharp tip of the light wind sword accurately pierced through the python's heart. The sword chi contained within the sword instantly crushed the python's heart. Xianxia didn't even look at the python as he put away the light wind sword and once again sat cross-legged under the tree and closed his eyes to continue his recovery. Although he looked like an old monk in meditation, Xianxia was always vigilant towards his surroundings. In the magical beast mountain range where magical beasts could appear at any time, Xianxia didn't dare to forget himself and focus on recovering his saint force. As for the python, its body, which was about 40 to 50 feet long, could no longer cling to the tree trunk. Its entire body fell powerlessly to the ground, making a clumsy sound. It struggled slightly for a while and then stopped moving. After another 2 hours, Xianxia finally opened his eyes and stood up from the ground. He took out a new set of clothes from his spatial belt and changed into them. Looking at the gray sky that was about to turn dark, he pondered for a moment before leaving the area. Xianxia carefully wandered around the area, looking for the people from the Tianxiong clan. At this time, he had already recovered from his injuries and his saint force had also been restored to its peak. Adding on the complicated terrain of the magical beast mountain range, Xianxia was confident that if he were to meet Tianxiong Lai again, he would be able to easily escape. At this moment, a few voices vaguely rang out from up ahead. Xianxia's interest was piqued when he heard the voices. He looked around before leaping up, silently landing on a large tree. He hid among the lush leaves. Not long after, a few people in white robes slowly walked over from the front. This really is a tough job. So many of us have to enter the mountain range of magical beasts to search for a single person. And we don't even have a portrait of this person. How are we supposed to find him? A young man dressed in a white robe grumbled. That's right. We don't even know what the person looks like. Even if we were to meet him, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to recognize him. The one speaking was a middle-aged man with a full chin beard. Hey, brothers, do you know why the family head wants us to find this person? A person asked doubtfully. It said that the young master, Tianxiong Kong, was killed by this person. Tianxiong Kong is our family head's only son. Now that his only son is dead, how can the family head not be angry? Of course, this time, the family head is determined to catch this murderer. I heard that he has already sent 300 people into the magical Beast Mountain range. Moreover, among these 300 people, even the weakest has the strength of a great saint. As for saint masters, there are more than 30 of them. The family has already sent so many people into the magical Beast Mountain range. Do you think they will be able to catch this murderer? After all, the magical Beast Mountain range is extremely large. Perhaps that person has already escaped without a trace. That's not necessarily true. According to reliable sources, the murderer has already been heavily injured by our family head. In this area where magical beasts roam, he won't be able to escape far. The few people chatted leisurely as they slowly walked over. Looking at their leisurely appearance, it was as if they were taking a stroll. It was as if they didn't take their mission seriously. Just as the few of them arrived in front of a large tree, the branches and leaves above suddenly swayed, and a figure sprang out, holding a slender silver-white long sword, and stabbed straight at one of the people in the middle. Poof! Just as they raised their heads, the long sword pierced straight through one of them's glabella from above. Chapter 140. At this time, the rest of the Tianxiong clan members also reacted and immediately took out their saint weapons to attack the attacker. The person wielding the long sword nimbly flipped in the air, dodging the attacks of several people, and gracefully landed on the ground. Following which, the long sword in his hand turned into a sky full of sword shadows, enveloping all of the people from the Tianxiong clan. When the sword images dissipated, the Tianxiong clan members fell to the ground one after another. On their necks, there was a faint trace of blood. In the next moment, fresh red blood gushed out from the wound like a fountain. Jian Chen sheathed his sword and calmly glanced at the members of the Tianxiong clan on the ground. In a low voice, he muttered, "You guys gave me some pretty good news. Over 30 saint masters and over 200 great saints. The Tianxiong clan's strength really isn't weak. They actually sent so many people to the magical Beast Mountain range to capture me. No wonder they are the #1 clan in Wake City." Pausing, Jian went silent for a moment. Then, a cold smile gradually appeared on his face. He whispered, "Since you won't let me go, then don't blame me for being ruthless. I'll play with you a bit." In the blink of an eye, several days had passed. During these days, Jian had been moving around the area, specifically dealing with the Tianxiong clan members. Although Jian wasn't the type to take revenge for the smallest grievance, he wasn't the type to not retaliate. After being bullied to this extent by the Tianxiong clan, if Jian still didn't do something, then he wouldn't be called Jian. In the past few days, the number of Tianxiong clan members that had died at the hands of Jian had reached over 200. Among them were 10 saint masters and the rest were great saints. Such heavy losses were difficult for the Tianxiong clan to bear. It was as if their foundation had been damaged. Although Tianxiong Lai was well aware of this, he didn't take any measures to remedy the situation. Instead, he constantly sent people from his clan into the magical Beast Mountain range to search for traces of Jian. He seemed to have made up his mind to avenge his son, regardless of the price he had to pay. These days, the entire Wake City was in an uproar because of the matter with the Tianxiong clan. The Tianxiong clan had been the overlord of Wake City for over 10 years and their reputation was extremely resounding. Almost all of the mercenaries and merchants in Wake City knew of the Tianxiong clan's name. The death of the young master of the Tianxiong clan, Tianxiong Kong, and the fact that Tianxiong Lai had led a group of experts into the Devil Beast Mountain range to hunt down the killer had caused a sensation in Wake City. This matter had become the topic of discussion among the mercenaries and merchants. At the same time, who was so bold as to dare kill the young master of the Tianxiong clan? This was also the hot topic of discussion. But regarding the mysterious killer, everyone knew that he was a very young man. Nothing else was known about him. As for the various clans in Wake City, they were constantly monitoring the situation of the Tianxiong clan. When they found out that the Tianxiong clan had lost a large number of people in the Devil Beast Mountain range, they began to secretly make preparations to take over the Tianxiong clan's market share. The business that the Tianxiong clan controlled in Wake City was extremely large, and many other clans had long since become jealous of them. However, because of the Tianxiong clan's strength, they didn't dare to act rashly. But now that the Tianxiong clan had gone through some unforeseen events and was no longer as strong as before, how could the other clans let go of such a good opportunity? In the Devil Beast Mountain range, a group of people sat together with frowns on their faces. There were a total of 20 people, and all of them were middle-aged men in their 40s. Patriarch, if this continues, the situation won't be good. That brat is extremely treacherous, and he clearly has a lot of experience in the forest, far surpassing us. Using the terrain advantage, he has already shaken us off several times. Furthermore, that brat is also extremely strong. When small groups encounter him, they are unable to resist at all, and they are all annihilated. He can even deal with several Saint Masters at the same time. Right now, we have already lost more than half of our people in the Devil Beast Mountain range. If this continues, the number of people who will be able to leave this place alive can be counted on one hand. A middle-aged man frowned as he spoke, his voice carrying a trace of worry. That's right, Patriarch. That brat is truly too cunning. When we gather together, he uses sneak attacks and then retreats. He simply doesn't want to meet us head-on. When we scatter, he kills us one by one. Furthermore, he is as agile as a monkey in the forest. We simply can't catch up to him. What do we do now? Among our group, I'm afraid that only you, Patriarch, can pose a threat to that brat. Another middle-aged man spoke, his voice filled with helplessness. Patriarch, the current situation is very unfavorable for us. Why don't we retreat for now, and then we can think of a plan? The one who spoke was a skinny man. Patriarch, if we lose too many people in the Devil Beast Mountain range, then it will be very detrimental to our development in Wake City. We can't continue like this. Tianxiong Lai tightly clenched his fists, his face filled with hesitation. It was clear that he was having an intense struggle in his heart. After hesitating for a long time, Tianxiong Lai finally gritted his teeth and unwillingly gave the order, "Order everyone to retreat." "Yes, Patriarch." Hearing the order to retreat, the 20 or so middle-aged men finally let out a happy smile. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. In the past few days of fighting with Genshin, many of them had almost lost their lives. Fortunately, Tianxiong Lai had arrived in time to save them. Among them, there were already some who had developed feelings of fear towards Genshin. Next, each of them took out a firecracker and lit the fuse with a torch. With an ear-piercing whistle, the firecracker flew high into the air before exploding with a deafening boom. It transformed into a large wave of bright red flames that quickly spread out in all directions. Somewhere in the mountain range of magical beasts, several youths around the age of 30 were sitting around a bonfire, roasting a large piece of meat torn from a magical beast. I don't know when the young master's murderer will be caught. Our Tianxiong clan has lost quite a few people to him these past few days. I heard that there were more than 10 Saint Masters. Even a Saint Master can be easily killed, let alone us who only have the strength of a great saint. I really don't know when we became that person's target. I hope we don't meet him. Otherwise, I'm afraid we won't be able to return alive. Several youths sat in front of the fire and talked with each other. Their expressions were full of worry. At this moment, a loud sound came from the sky. Hearing the sound, they all looked up at the same time. When they saw the blooming fireworks in the distance through the gaps in the dense foliage, their faces revealed a trace of pleasant surprise. That's the signal for our clan to retreat. Immediately, one of them couldn't help but exclaim, "We can finally leave this place. What are you guys waiting for? Hurry up and leave. Don't tell me you guys want to stay here and be killed by the murderer at any time. Yes. Hurry up and leave. I don't want to stay here a moment longer." Then, several people didn't have time to eat and immediately left. Not long after they left, a figure walked out of the forest not far away. That person was wearing animal skin, and his face was like a little cat. It was impossible to see what he looked like. Chapter 141. Following this, the Xianxia clan gave up on their search for Jianchen and began to withdraw from the Devil Beast Mountain range. Everyone was rushing towards the place where the fireworks were blooming. However, Jianchen didn't plan on letting the Xianxia clan go. Although he couldn't do anything to Xianxia Lai for the time being, he wouldn't let any of these great saints or saint masters off. Although he would occasionally encounter mercenaries in the Devil Beast Mountain range, the Xianxia clan's people were all dressed in white. Moreover, they all had the patriarch's insignia on their chests, so Jianchen wasn't worried about killing the wrong people. From time to time, sounds of fighting and screams could be heard from the Devil Beast Mountain range. Many of the Xianxia clan's people who were retreating from the Devil Beast Mountain range had been ambushed by Jianchen. Jianchen relied on his rich experience of surviving in the Devil Beast Mountain range for several months. In this complex terrain, he was like a ghost appearing and disappearing. His sneak attacks made it impossible for the Xianxia clan to guard against. Although there were several times where Jianchen's shadow was discovered by experienced people, in the end he still relied on his superior battle strength to kill them one by one. Even if Jianchen was surrounded by the experts of the Xianxia clan, he would still be able to use his advantage to quickly escape. Then, with a few flashes, he would disappear into the forest, causing the group of people from the Xianxia clan to feel extremely pained. There was simply no one who could catch up to him. Even Xianxia Lai, who had the strength of an intermediate great saint master, couldn't do anything to Jianchen in this forest. After half a day, the Xianxia clan's people finally gathered together. Looking at the group of less than 100 people, Xianxia Lai's face was gloomy to the point of being frightening. From start to finish, he had mobilized a total of 500 people to enter the Devil Beast Mountain range. He didn't expect that in just a few days, he would lose over 400 people. For the Xianxia clan, this was an extremely disastrous loss. A dense killing intent flashed in Xianxia Lai's eyes. At this moment, the desire to kill Jianchen in his heart was unprecedentedly strong. Not only did Jianchen kill his only son, but he also brought such a disastrous loss to the Xianxia clan. Now, Xianxia Lai wanted nothing more than to eat Jianchen's flesh and drink Jianchen's blood. Looking at Xianxia Lai's gloomy face, the surrounding Xianxia clan's members all shrunk their necks and didn't dare to make a sound. They were afraid that they would say something that would make Xianxia Lai's anger. At this moment, no one dared to offend him. "Let's go!" Xianxia Lai waved his hand. With a gloomy face, he led everyone away. He knew that after this incident, it would be difficult for the Xianxia clan to maintain their position as the #1 clan in Wake City. The remaining members of the Xianxia clan majestically shuttled through the dense forest. Along the way, the magical beasts didn't dare to rashly attack them. However, in this group of people, if they weren't dispirited, their faces were dispirited, and their morale was extremely low. Behind them, a figure wearing animal skin was closely following them. This figure was extremely nimble in the forest. When his body moved quickly, it didn't cause too much of a disturbance in the surrounding weeds. Although this figure was at most 50 meters away from the Xianxia clan's group, when the Xianxia clan's large group hurried through the forest, the sound of their bodies rubbing against the weeds was extremely loud. It completely covered up the small sound behind them, so no one discovered that someone was following them closely. The figure carefully and cautiously followed behind them. Using the surrounding weeds as cover, he quickly approached the Xianxia clan's group. Very quickly, without anyone noticing, he arrived within 20 meters of the Xianxia clan's group. At that moment, a cold, gleaming longsword suddenly appeared in that person's hand. Immediately after, he no longer hid his tracks. His body turned into a blur as he quickly charged towards the people at the very back of the Xianxia clan's group. The short 20 meters of distance was crossed in an instant. The long sword flashed with a threatening cold light as it pierced through the air towards the Xianxia clan's group. With a few flashes of the sword, the long sword had already pierced through the throats of 5 people at an unbelievable speed. However, the figure didn't stop there. The slender silver longsword in his hand turned into an afterimage as he once again stabbed towards the Tianxiong clan's group. In a short moment, the long sword pierced through the throats of 3 more people. Everyone be careful, that person is coming again. After that person killed 8 people at lightning speed, he was finally noticed by someone. Immediately, a loud shout sounded from the crowd. Hearing this, the Tianxiong clan's group was shocked. They immediately took out their saint weapons and vigilantly looked around. Just as that person shouted, the person behind him immediately retracted his sword and retreated. With a few flashes, he disappeared into the dense weeds. "Stop, don't even think of escaping." A loud shout suddenly sounded. Immediately after, Tianxiong Lai leaped into the air with his axe in hand and chased after the person who disappeared. Behind him, the 20 Saint Masters followed one after another. Seeing Tianxiong Lai chase after so many people, the rest of the Tianxiong clan's group let out a sigh of relief. Their tense expressions relaxed quite a bit. These past few days, they had been continuously harassed by that person. Furthermore, so many of their brothers who were on the same level as them had died, causing them to feel a bit of fear towards that person. They were all afraid that the person lying on the ground would be them. However, just as they let out a sigh of relief, the weeds beside them split open again. A silver longsword turned into a blur and stabbed towards them with lightning speed. Pooh! Pooh! Immediately, 2 people who were close to the sword were pierced through their throats and fell to the ground. The sudden movement alarmed many people. When they saw the situation in front of them, their faces changed greatly. They immediately shouted, "Everyone be careful, he's here." Just as this person's voice fell, a person wearing beast skin rushed out from the dense weeds. The long sword in his hand danced rapidly, forming a series of afterimages that attacked the people nearby. The Tianxiong clan's people also raised their saint weapons and attacked. They planned to use their advantage in numbers to delay the sneak attacker. At the same time, a group of people began to scatter in all directions, forming an encirclement to surround the attacker. The man in animal skin who was trapped in the middle did not show the slightest panic on his face. The long sword in his hand had been brandished into a blurry afterimage, constantly resisting the attacks from all directions. The speed of his sword was so fast that it made people speechless. Few of these people who only had the strength of a great saint could dodge his attack. Following a series of clanging sounds of weapons colliding, the man in animal skin used the long sword in his hand to attack. Then, the long sword in his hand turned into a silver-white phantom. In a short moment he stabbed out 5 times. Immediately, the 5 people nearby had their throats pierced by the long sword. After killing the 5 people, the person wearing the beast skin didn't continue to fight. He charged out of the encirclement and entered the weeds. With a few flashes he disappeared. The encirclement formed by the Tianxiong clan members hadn't been able to stop that person in the slightest. Not long after that person left, Tianxiong Lai, who was wrapped in a layer of yellow saint force, suddenly rushed back from the other side. His eyes scanned the surroundings, but other than a few corpses on the ground, he didn't see the person who had ambushed him. Chapter 142. He ran away from there. Someone immediately pointed in the direction of the man's escape and said. Hearing this, Tianxiong Lai's eyes turned cold as he looked in that direction. At this moment, the grass was still swaying slightly. It was obvious that the man had just left, but there was no trace of him. Tianxiong Lai retracted his gaze and slowly scanned the bodies of the people on the ground. His face was gloomy and terrifying. In such a short period of time, another 15 people had died. If this continued, by the time they left the magical Beast Mountain range, there would be less than 50 people left. Such a huge loss was not something the Tianxiong clan could bear. The 20 or so Saint Masters who had followed Tianxiong Lai also returned. They stood behind Tianxiong Lai without saying a word. When they saw the dozen or so people lying on the ground, their faces became unprecedentedly heavy. Continue forward. After a moment of silence, Tianxiong Lai issued another order. The experience of the past few days had made it clear in his heart that in this complex terrain of the magical Beast Mountain range, he was unable to deal with the youth who had killed his son, Tianxiong Kong. If he continued to stay here, he was afraid that he would end up being completely annihilated. Now change the formation. Saint Masters will form groups of 5 and spread out in all directions. The rest of the great saints will gather in the center. Maintain this formation and continue forward. Tianxiong Lai said in a low voice. Being forced to such a state by a young man who was weaker than him, to him, this was a great humiliation that he would never be able to wash away. Soon after, the members of the Tianxiong clan followed Tianxiong Lai's instructions and changed their formation, continuing to move forward. However, after experiencing the surprise attack from before, everyone was on high alert. Their eyes constantly scanned the surroundings to prevent another attack from that person. Tianxiong Lai walked in the center of the group, the saint force in his body constantly circulating. As long as the young man appeared again, no matter where he appeared, he would be able to reach him in the shortest time possible. Tianxiong Lai's pair of cold eyes scanned the surroundings, even his ears were trembling slightly. He was constantly observing the surroundings for any movement. As long as you appear again, I will kill you no matter the cost. Tianxiong Lai's heart was filled with hatred. The group of people from the Tianxiong clan slowly advanced through the dense forest. Because they had to be careful of sneak attacks, the group didn't advance too quickly. They were afraid that they would cause too much of a commotion and cover up any small movements around them. Just as the Tianxiong clan's group was about to cross this area of dense weeds, a figure suddenly shot out from the nearby weeds. Following the flash of a sword, it instantly pierced through the throats and hearts of several people. Don't even think about escaping this time. Just as the silhouette pierced the throats of several people, an angry shout came from the middle of the crowd. Immediately after, Tianxiong Lai descended from the sky with a huge axe in his hand. The huge axe was filled with Saint Qi of the Earth attribute and it was aimed at the silhouette. At the same time, a few Saint Master level experts in the surroundings also jumped over from the sky, each of them holding a saint weapon and chopping towards that person. That person did not come into contact with the crowd. He withdrew his sword and immediately disappeared into the weeds beside him. You all stay here, I'll go after him. Tianxiong Lai ordered. In a flash, he entered the weeds and chased in the direction that the person had escaped in. This patch of weeds was as tall as a person and it was very wide. The person wearing the beast skin was nimbly shuttling through the weeds. His speed was very fast and he specifically chose the direction where the weeds were sparser. He tried his best to maintain a high speed in order to make as little noise as possible. His body was as light as a feather, without the slightest bit of weight. While he was running, his feet didn't touch the ground and he was only using the roots of the weeds for support. This time you won't be able to escape. If I don't kill you today, I won't be able to vent the hatred in my heart. Tianxiong Lai was in hot pursuit. He had already pushed his speed to the limit. His feet were already wrapped in a layer of yellow light, faintly connecting with the earth. His speed was actually not much slower than the person running in front of him. The person wearing the beast skin was constantly changing directions. Tianxiong Lai, who was behind him, could not clearly see the person's figure in the weeds. So every once in a while, he would jump high into the air to check his position so that he wouldn't lose him again. At this time, a gust of wind blew by, causing the weeds to sway and make a walla walla sound. Tianxiong Lai's face slightly changed and he immediately jumped high into the air. He stopped in the air for a moment to observe his surroundings. His face suddenly sank because he had lost track of that person again. This damn wind didn't come earlier or later. Why did it have to come at this time? I actually let him escape again. Tianxiong Lai landed on the ground again and his face was full of resentment. He couldn't help but curse. Then he didn't give up and jumped high into the air again, trying to find the person's trace. But at this time, the wind was still blowing, causing the weeds to sway. It was simply impossible to find the person's trace. I will definitely not let you go. If you are a man, then leave your name. Tianxiong Lai was furious. He roared towards the sky, the sound waves rolling, spreading far and wide. Not long after, a hearty laugh came from afar. Haha, I am Genshin Tianxiong clan. In the future, I will definitely pay you a visit. Today, I will part ways. I hope the clan head won't miss me. Genshin good I Tianxiong Lai, swear that no matter where you run to, I will find you. You cannot escape. Tianxiong Lai gnashed his teeth and roared. This time, however, there was no response. Tianxiong Lai could only helplessly return. He then led the group of people from the Tianxiong clan out of the magical Beast Mountain range. Very quickly, they left the lush weeds. Perhaps because they had lost the cover of the terrain, the Tianxiong clan didn't encounter any more sneak attacks. After returning to Wake City, Tianxiong Lai immediately posted a high bounty at the Mercenary Union. The bounty was 10,000 purple crystal coins for the capture of a person called Genshin. At the same time, he also announced Genshin's characteristics. This time, the entire Wake City was in an uproar. Since the establishment of Wake City, 10,000 purple crystal coins was the first time such a high bounty had been seen. Even in the Tianyuan continent, such a high bounty was extremely rare. The Mercenary Union directly raised the rank of this mission to OA rank and treated it as a special mission. There were no restrictions on the level of mercenaries who could accept this mission. Furthermore, this mission was also issued to the surrounding kingdoms, including the Blue Wind Kingdom. At this moment, Genshin still didn't know that he was once again wanted by the Mercenary Union. He was still washing his body in a river in the magical Beast Mountain range. Chapter 143. Suddenly, Genshin, who was washing his body in the river, let out a soft sound of surprise as he stared blankly at his own body. After the layer of sweat accumulated on his body was cleaned, Genshin was surprised to find that his skin had turned dark red, completely different from his normal skin color. What's going on? Why is my body so red? Genshin was slightly startled and immediately frowned. However, as if he had thought of something, his expression relaxed and he couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. With a somewhat excited tone, he muttered to himself, according to the records in the books, this kind of situation is a phenomenon where the silver-striped golden snake's poison resistance factor has completely fused with the blood in my body. I didn't think that this step would actually take a month. After that, the blood that has fused with the silver-striped golden snake's poison resistance factor will continuously transform my body. Every part of my body will have an extremely strong poison resistance ability. Only then will I be considered to have a complete 10,000 poisons impenetrable body. Once I complete the 10,000 poisons impenetrable body, the regenerated blood in my body will naturally have an extremely strong poison resistance factor. I won't have to worry about losing too much blood and losing the ability to resist poison. Genshin carefully sensed his own body and found that other than the dark red color of his skin, he didn't feel anything different. Everything was the same as before. Genshin jumped up from the river and landed firmly on the riverbank. He then picked up the simple clothes made of beast skin and put them on. Since he had decided to raise his strength to the Saint Master level before leaving the mountain range of magical beasts, he couldn't give up on this simple set of clothes. Due to the lack of time, he didn't have many new sets of clothes with him when he returned to Wake City. In the mountain range of magical beasts, he didn't want to waste the few sets of clothes he had in his spatial belt. This was because in this complex forest, there were thorns everywhere. Adding on the fact that he would be injured in battle with magical beasts, the wear and tear of his clothes would be extremely fast. No matter how many sets of clothes he had, he wouldn't be able to withstand this kind of consumption. After that, Genshin continued to go deeper into the magical beast mountain range. He arrived at the area where third-rank magical beasts roamed and stayed there for a few days. During these few days, Genshin was the same as before. During the day, he wandered around looking for traces of magical beasts to kill. At night, he used the demon cores he harvested during the day to cultivate. However, because he didn't have any anti-mosquito medicine, Genshin was tormented almost every night. He was harassed by countless poisonous mosquitoes and insects. Almost every day during the day, as long as there wasn't any cover on Genshin's body, there would be a large patch of bruises. Fortunately, Jianshan now had the 10,000 poisons impenetrable body, so he didn't have to worry about being poisoned by the poisonous mosquitoes and insects. Moreover, because he could control the holy light force, those bruises that remained on his body would immediately dissipate as long as they were healed by the holy light force. After these few days of cultivation, Jianshan's strength had already reached the level of a high-level great saint. In addition, he fought with third-rank magical beasts every day, so his already exquisite swordsmanship was tempered once again. His swordsmanship was even more exquisite than before. Moreover, as his strength increased, the toughness of Jianshan's body was also slowly increasing. Although it was far from being invulnerable, it was undoubtedly a very good carrier for him to use his fast swordsmanship. After all, to be fast enough, the requirements for the body were also very high. If the body wasn't tough enough, just a punch with all his strength would probably cause his arm to ache and his blood flow to be impeded. If he kept punching quickly, even a healthy person wouldn't be able to last long before his arm would ache. However, Jianshan was able to maintain his lightning-fast swordsmanship for a long time. The biggest reason for this was because of the mysteries of the Azulite sword mantra that he cultivated. In particular, the first layer of the Azulite sword mantra, body refinement. Not only did it strengthen every cell in Jianshan's body, but it also made his body softer and more resilient. This was the reason why Jianshan was able to unleash a strike so fast that even people more powerful than him would struggle to dodge it despite his weak strength. After reaching the level of a great saint, Jianshan had an even easier time killing third-rank magical beasts. The number of magical beasts that died at his hands almost reached 30 or 40 every day. Somewhere in the magical beast mountain range, Jianshan was engaged in an intense battle with a large third-rank magical beast. This magical beast was as large as a cow, and its entire body was covered with a layer of extremely strong defensive scales. Jianshan's body was like a ghost as he circled around the magical beast at an extremely fast speed. The silver-white light wind sword turned into a white ray of light as it continuously attacked the magical beast's body. The magical beast's scales were extremely strong, and Jianshan's light wind sword was unable to pierce through them. Adding on the fact that the magical beast's body was too large, even if the light wind sword managed to pierce through its body, as long as it didn't injure any of its vitals, it wouldn't be able to heavily injure it. After fighting with the magical beast for a while, Jianshan finally found an opportunity. With a lightning-fast strike, he pierced through the scales around the magical beast's throat and plunged the sharp tip of his sword into its throat. But to Jianshan's surprise, the magical beast actually didn't die after its throat was pierced. After letting out a miserable roar, it once again charged at him with even more ferocity than before. This armored tortoise beast in front of me should be at the peak of the 3rd rank, and is about to step into the 4th rank. No wonder its vitality is so strong. It seems that if I want to quickly deal with it, I'll have to do it from the inside. Otherwise, unless I cut off its entire head, it would be very difficult to kill it. Jianshan thought to himself. Not only was the magical beast in front of him extremely strong, but its vitality was also extremely strong. Jianshan's light wind sword pierced through its throat, but it didn't immediately die. Instead, it seemed to have angered the magical beast. While Jianshan was fighting with the armored tortoise beast, a group of people dressed as mercenaries suddenly appeared from the side. There were about 20 of them, and all of their faces were covered in dust. Apart from being able to roughly guess their ages, it was impossible to see their facial features. Among them, half of them were wearing animal skins and tree barks, while the other half were wearing tattered clothes that didn't cover their bodies. 1 or 2 of them even had bandages wrapped around their bodies, and from the blood stains on the bandages, it wasn't difficult to see that they were all injured. As soon as this group of people appeared, their eyes fell on Jianshan, who was fighting the armored tortoise beast. Then, a low cry of surprise suddenly sounded from the group of people. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.